In tonight's Other News of the Day segment, closing arguments are now over in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. The judge will give jury instructions on Monday. Could Diddy be acquitted? Joining us with reaction, Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett. Greg, why don't we start with that question? The Diddy people, the defense didn't put a single witness up. Could he actually be acquitted?
Yeah.
Wow.
I long ago gave up trying to predict what jurors are going to do. And I found out the hard way a couple of times, trying cases myself. Look, the prosecution put up a formidable case. They had the first word, the last word. Combs' defense in the intervening time, they basically said for his defense that they failed to prove the case and that our client is a bad guy. We own the brutal beating of his ex-girlfriend, but nevertheless, everything else was consensual. Prosecution said that's utter nonsense. They went through methodically all 10 of the underlying crimes that constitute racketeering, an ongoing criminal enterprise. And they seem to have presented sufficient evidence in the way of witnesses and testimony and other documentary evidence. If there's one thing that I think will convict Combs, it is that horrific videotape in the hallway of a hotel in which he savagely, like a monster, beats his girlfriend. I don't know how you get around that if you're a juror. And if you're on the fence about reasonable doubt, maybe you say to yourself, this is such a bad person, he belongs behind bars. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to the government on reasonable doubt.
That's the thing about when our eyes and our ears are working, whether we see a president in full cognitive decline a year ago on a debate stage or we're watching Sean Combs treat his girlfriend the way you just said. And in her majority opinion against nationwide injunctions, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett blasted her colleague, Ketanji Brown Jackson, writing that Jackson is, quote, at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, and that she, quote, decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Coney Barrett also called out Jackson for being unwilling to, quote, read legalese. I mean, Greg, this was a real takedown. I don't want people to think it was some kind of partisan catfight. I think that Amy Coney Barrett is saying, excuse me, our job in the judiciary, especially the United States Supreme Court, is to interpret the Constitution, to interpret the law. So tell us what happened today in this really strongly worded opinion.
Well, I agree with you. Barrett's stinging rebuke of Jackson's arguments, I think, will go down as historically memorable by saying that her arguments are so incredibly vacuous that they only deserve a quick dismissal. And yes, that line, you decry an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary, is really the point. It's the most penetrating scold that I remember from a justice, but it was both true and revealing. Neither Jackson nor Sotomayor could point to anything in the law that empowers every single unelected judge to hold a president's agenda hostage and freeze the functioning of our government nationwide. You know, all 670-plus judges do not have veto power. They do not countermand everything the chief executive does that they just don't like personally. And Barrett seemed to mock Jackson's inflated claim that this decision marks the downfall of our governing institutions, the degradation of the law. That's nonsense. It was so far-fetched and overwrought that I think in the end, Jackson lost credibility.
You know, whether it's Sotomayor in one of those decisions last year, I think with respect to migrants, certainly the leak of the Dobbs case decision 3.5 years ago, Greg, and now this, you feel like the Supreme Court is losing its credibility as an institution because some of these justices have conclusions in search of evidence, and the conclusions feel Trump derangement syndrome addled and a bit political.
Yeah, and look, one of the foremost points that was made today is that the judiciary is an equal branch of government. It's not a superior one. District judges have a narrowly defined role under our Constitution, and they should not and cannot go beyond that.
Great insights as always, Gregg Jarrett.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.